2025, I wanted to talk with you about some of the books that I want to read this year. So I've curated my 25 books of 2025 that I want to read. A lot of these, actually looking at them, are new releases. They're books that are up and coming. They're coming out this year because there are just so many good ones. But that being said, there are also some that are quite like old backlist books. So I've written in my book journal, my 25 of 2025, and I wanted to tell you all of the books that I'm hopefully going to get through this year, because if you were here for my 24 of 2024, that was a mess. I didn't want to read hardly any of those books. I just put them on there for the sake of it. So this year I actually sat down and thought about what I want to read, what I want to gain from 2025 reading wise. And here we are. So I hope you enjoy the books I want to read this year. I'm just going to do these in the order that I wrote them, but there is no specific order. It's not like a ranking or anything like that. So starting off, we have Girl Dinner by Olivia Blake. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking I would have put Gifted and Talented on here. I already read it. I already read it. So I'm really excited about Girl Dinner. I think it's about a cannibal sorority in the US. It's giving Scream Queens to me. That's all I think. Like, Girl Dinner, sorority, cannibalism, it's giving Scream Queens. And that's one of my favourite shows ever. I love the satire. And I think Olivia Blake does weird fiction quite well. Things that you don't expect to be in books. Olivia Blake does it really well. So I'm very excited about that one. That one comes out in the end of this year. I don't know the exact date. I'm sure it exists somewhere on the internet. I don't know the exact date, but Girl Dinner is like high for me. Like I need that book. I really need that book right now. Next up, from another favourite author of mine. There are lots of authors of mine that I love that are bringing books out this year, which is just great for me. And that's Great Big Beautiful World by Emily Henry. This is Emily Henry's 6th book. And I remember being there when You and Me on Vacation came out, because I was offered a copy. And then when book covers came out, like I got the arc and I was just so excited. And I've loved Emily Henry for like 4 years of my life now. So to be sat here and be like, there's another Emily Henry book coming out, I can't wait. But this one feels a little bit different because this one is about 2 writers who are kind of competing to write somebody else's autobiography, I think. Biography? I get confused which one it is. Autobiography. They want to write this woman's memoir, basically. And they're competing between the 2 of them to who's going to get to do it. And I think obviously there's going to be the romance and the tension there as well. I love when Emily Henry writes books about people in the bookish space or like communications, stuff like that, because I'm like, wow, maybe this could be me. Maybe this could be me. But I absolutely loved Honey's Story. I think it was one of her best. And I can't wait for this one to come out because I have a really good feeling about this. Like, there hasn't been an Emily Henry book since Book Lovers that I gave less than 5 stars to. So high expectations, but I do think Emily Henry is going to meet them for sure. Coming in at number 3, we have First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. This one comes out in February, so kind of perfect for Valentine's Day. It's a reimagining of Sleepless in Seattle. Have I ever seen Sleepless in Seattle? No, but I'm going to eat this book up. I'm excited about this book. I think this is B.K. Borison's like first series after the Love Light Farm series. It says, a hopeless romantic meets a demoralized radio host in this cozy Sleepless in Seattle inspired story from beloved author B.K. Borison. I read recently Love Light Farms and I thought that was so good. But the fact that this is a little bit longer, I think we're going to be able to get our teeth into it a little bit more. The cover, whoever designed this cover, I actually don't know who did. I'm going to have to ask at work. But great job. 10 out of 10 because this is just so beautiful. Love the cover. I love the cover so much. It drew me to it a lot. Next up, we have Cruel is the Light by Sophie Clark. I keep going to say Sophie Locke because that's another author, but it's not. It's Sophie Clark. I think, if I remember rightly, this is a YA debut. I could be very wrong, but I really do think it is. I've seen so many people talk about this book. I've pre-ordered it off Waterstones ages ago, and I just can't wait. And do I actually know what this is about? No. I think it's like, I know it's fantasy and I know it's some form of enemies to lovers, but I feel like obviously I'm outgrowing YA. I'm not really into it as much, but every so often there is one where I think, you know what, I'm going to give that a go, because a lot of the time they're more catered towards like the end of YA, so the older audience, and that one felt very much like that, so that's why I'm really excited to get to that one. I don't know when it comes out either. That I feel like it's a February release as well. There's lots of things coming out in February as I'm thinking about this, and I haven't seen a bad review of it. I know so many people who've got the arc of it and they've said if they've read it, it's really good. And I'm just in a mood for like a classic enemies to lovers fantasy, like you know what you're getting into type of situation. I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel. I'm looking for comfort, and I think that book is going to provide that. Moving on to a bit of a classic, well, it is a classic. Since graduating, one of my things is I don't want to lose my analytical skills when it comes to books, because I do think it's like something in your brain you have to keep practicing, and you can't, like, you won't, it's like riding a bike, you don't lose it, but it's not quite the same the first few tries. So I put on Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. In my life, I would like to have read every single Charles Dickens book. Last year I said I was going to read every single Bronte book. That did not happen. That was a difficult task because I really got stuck on Jane Eyre, and I don't even start me on Shirley. Shirley is one of my favourite books of all time, but that reading experience was so difficult. So I put Great Expectations on here because I thought if I try and like tick off one a year, that's quite good for me. And although I know the story of Great Expectations, I've never actually read it. So I think it'll be a good Charles Dickens to get back into, because the last one that I read, I think, was like A Christmas Carol, and before that it was like one of the long ones. I think it was Little Dorrit. So it's nice to have a bit of a break and go back into Charles Dickens, but I do feel like this is one of the classics that so many people have read and I haven't, and I get really embarrassed when I think about that. I'm like, wow, how have I not read like one of Charles Dickens' most famous works? This year we're changing that. I'm going to be reading it this year. Now, if you were here in 2021, you'll know that I read a book called Trial of Sorceress by Elise Cover, which I loved. I never shut up about that book. And as of late, I'm trying to talk about books that I used to love more, because obviously the book space has changed and etc, etc. However, Elise Cover is getting traditionally published this year by Hodder. I can't be more excited. And they very kindly sent me a copy of Arcana. Is it Arcana Academy? I think it's Arcana Academy. I don't know how to say it, but Arcana Academy. We'll go with that. This is Elise Cover's dark academia romantic book, which just sounds up my street. Also, I read Modern Divination by Issa Agajanian recently, and that is a dark academia romance. So I'm really hoping this gives those same vibes, but it's unequivocally Elise Cover, because Elise Cover there's something about Elise Cover's writing that is so immersive, and you really feel the tension. Like, she's honed her craft. She's written so many great books, and I like don't doubt this will be any different. I think it's going to be incredible. It's a little bit of a longer one as well, and it just says, dark academia meets romantasy, get ready to fall in love at Arcana Academy. I don't know if this is the start of a series, but I would assume so. Yeah, I'm really like this. This is probably one of my most anticipated books of the year. Then by our Lord and Saviour Jessa Hastings, we have The Conditions of Will. This is a standalone book that Jess is bringing out this year. Read anything that Jessa Hastings writes, I'm going to read. I know there was so much controversy over Never by Jessa Hastings. I loved that book. I've read that book 3 times in my life. It's a 5-star read every single time, and I think people just get upset that it's not Magnolia Park. Like, it's not the Magnolia Park series. However, I'm really excited about this one. The plot sounds so good. It gives me like Knives Out vibes, but not really, more like literary fiction, and I like the fact that it sounds like none of them are going to be good characters, which is great. I love when Jessa Hastings writes characters that are just not good, because I think that's where you can get the most out of them. You can do the deep character analysis. Very excited. And the cover again, like, covers are really hitting this year. Coming into March, we have Sunrise on the Reaping. Oh my god, like, 1, the book, 2, the film coming out next year. Who's going to be Haymitch? And what I'm most interested to see is, because we already know so much about Haymitch's games from the original Hunger Games trilogy, I don't know how Suzanne Collins is going to do it. Like, are we actually going to see the games? Is it going to be a bit like a Hunger Games situation and Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, where you have like the before, the games, the after? I don't really know how that's going to go down. And also, like, Suzanne Collins always says she writes stuff when she has something to say. I just can't. Oh my god, I'm so, I can't speak. This book, the moment that book drops, I am going to Waterstones, I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to read it straight away. After reading Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and watching the film religiously, my like Hunger Games era was just reignited. It was like laying dormant, and it just got reignited, and I think that's going to happen again. I think we're going to see that again in March. A book that I'm still embarrassed that I haven't read, and was also on my 24 books of 2024, Babel by R.F. Kuang. The reason why I don't want to read this specific edition is honestly because I don't want to read the hardback exclusive. So I think I might see if it ever goes on Kindle for 99p or something, and I'll pick it up that way, or maybe the paperback. But yeah, I am excited about this one. I just know that it's going to take me a while, and I don't, it scares me as much as A Little Life scares me, and I don't know why, because I don't think they have similar content in the book, but I've just seen so many people get so sad over this book that it's really scared me. Again, I love dark academia, and I do feel like I can't say I love it if I've not read Babel. come on days. So that's also on my list for 2025. Taylor Jenkins Reid announced that she is releasing a new book this year, which thank God, finally. Like, when did Carrie Soto's back about? Like 2021? They took a break and I'm so glad she's back. And we have Atmosphere. This is about astronauts and that's all I know. I think it's about astronauts. I'm guessing atmosphere, space, gives that vibe, doesn't it? So I'm really excited about this one. I need to stop saying I'm really excited about books. I need to find a new synonym for excited. But that's all I know. However, I will say I hate the cover. Like, sorry, I hate the cover. From Rachel Gillig, we have The Knight and the Moth. Rachel Gillig wrote the One Dark Window duology, the Shepherd King duology, and I read the first book and just, I couldn't get over how immersed I was in that story and the cliffhanger ending. Like, I do feel like I haven't read good cliffhangers in a while. And then I read a few books like back to back that were incredible, like just leaving you like jaw dropped. And One Dark Window was one of them. I think Rachel Gillig writes dark books really well, like atmospheric dark books, and I miss them. I used to read a lot of them when I was younger. I feel like darker books, not that the themes were darker, but they just felt quite dark. You know what I'm saying? And I think this one is going to really provide, I mean, the fact that it's called The Knight and the Moth, I love that it has like, One Dark Window had quite a medieval feel about it, and I hope The Knight and the Moth does too, especially because like Night gives me medieval. Another February release is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. Like, I'm so excited. Once I finish my TBR for this month, this will hopefully be the next one that I pick up. It says a competitive diver and an ace swimmer jump into forbidden waters in the steamy college romance from the Sunday Times and New York Times bestselling author of The Love Hypothesis. This also comes out really soon, the 4th of February. I love Ali Hazelwood. I think the only book that I wasn't a fan of was, Love on the Brain. I was not into Love on the Brain at all. All the other books, except Check and Makes, I haven't finished that one, oops. All the other books sold, like so sold. Not in Love theoretically, like those two books, Bride, can't wait. So I feel like Ali Hazelwood's style of writing is really evolving. As it evolves, I just fall more in love with her books. And I'm really hoping this is like Not in Love more than any of the others, because Not in Love probably was my favourite one. I just think it was like, I think the plot itself was so good. The romance, I really was rooting for them, and that's what I'm hoping for this one. And the fact that it's a sports romance, like, I love a sports romance. I really do. Then we have Silvercloak by L.K. Stevens. So L.K. Stevens is also known as Laura Stevens, and she wrote Our Infinite Fates. I think Our Infinite Fates. It's there, in case you can't see it, it's there. And this is their adult debut. A dark and delicious adult fantasy debut. What drew me to this book so much was the magic system. The magic system feels very different than anything I've read about before. I haven't obviously actually read the book yet, but the synopsis itself sounds really fascinating and just has, like, it seems to just detach itself from regular fantasies, and it has something different about it, which I'm always looking for in a fantasy, because it can get difficult to, you know, write something completely new in a world where everything seems to be based on something else. I think there's like two warring factions as well at play, and I also got told that I was a Silvercloak, not their Blood Moon, which kind of like, I agree. I haven't read it, but I think I would be. But I love Ashley Poston, I really do. A novel love story, 5-star. The 7 Year Slip, 5-star. And so Sounds Like Love comes out this year. Can't wait. I think what's really interesting for me with Ashley Poston, specifically A Novel Love Story, is I read that book and I was like, love it so much. 4.5 stars. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, I think about it very often actually, and it just became a 5-star read because it's so different, it's so novel. I love that Ashley Poston has magic realism, because I think it's a genre that isn't as explored much, especially because Ashley Poston never explains why these magic phenomenons happen. And that's what makes it more magical. The fact that you just have to believe it. Our next book is actually my current read, and that is Fable for the End of the World by Ava Reid. I'm 240 pages through, and this book is offering everything that I wanted it to. However, going into this, I didn't know what this was about. I just knew the smallest little tiny detail, and I begged Dalray for a copy, and they so kindly gave me one. Oh my gosh, this book. I'm eating it up. It's like The Hunger Games meets Study and Drowning, which is also by Ava Reid. But it's got this really fascinating world to it, where you're seeing how two people who to each other are not deemed as human, like they don't see them as humans, are starting to have a humanity about them as they get put into a situation where one of them is tasked to kill the other, and the other is kind of like, well, what am I gonna do? Because you're a trained fighter, I'm a girl who does taxidermy for a living, so like this is not that we are not on the same playing field. And it's just so interesting to see how people can go from being nothing to you to everything so quickly. Really enjoying this so far. Would recommend this one because it's the only one that I can recommend right now. This one, I don't know why I put this on. I was feeling really ambitious. I have a goal that by the time I'm 25, I will have read War and Peace. So it has to be before I turn 25. And I'll turn 25 in 2027. So I put it on for this year. I don't know why. I actually don't know if I saw the book in real life for the first time the other day in Waterstone. So I picked it up. 1,300 pages, almost 1,400 pages. The font is tiny. And as soon as I saw it, I got very disheartened, but I'd already written this list. I was like, well, cool. So War and Peace is on there. This is the only one where I'm like, don't hold me to it. I think I might eventually buy it and then it'll be like a year-long journey where I read like a few pages a day or something. I don't think I could sit down and read that book in like a month, like just have one book on the go. I would get bored very easily. I don't know if that's going to happen. Next up, we have the conclusion to the Powerless series by Lauren Roberts, and that is, of course, Fearless. There has been so much controversy over this series recently, but I really enjoyed it. You can definitely tell that it's basically Red Queen x Hunger Games. Like, that's what it is, and that's what you're signing up for, and I think a lot of people don't realise that, or they think Red Queen is power. Like, anyway, but Fearless is coming out and I'm excited because how the last book ended, I really do need this book because I need to know what happens. I do think it's going to be a happy ending, like, sorry, I just think because it's a YA trilogy, it's going to happen. And I also think a lot of authors are scared to make like any crazy changes, so I'm not too nervous about what's going to go down because in my head I think it's all going to work out. I may be wrong, I may eat my words later on, but I definitely want to read it just so I know what happens to the characters, because the ending was crazy. The reckless ending was really out of this world. Another R.F. Kuang I want to get to is Catabasis. First things first, they released the cover for this the other day. I really hope that's not the cover. I really hope that's not the cover. I also, like, yeah, I'm not into the cover, but I am into the plot. I think it's like two people in the underworld, romance, fantasy, that type of thing. And I do love a romance fantasy. Not a romantasy, but a romance fantasy. And R.F. Kuang's work is just so phenomenal. The writing style, R.F. Kuang's work feels like every single word was specifically chosen. Like, there wasn't any stream of consciousness, wrote it really quickly. Like, every single word is chosen for a purpose. And I can't wait. Catabasis just sounds great. I'm really into it. Another Elise Cover book I want to get to is the Air Awakens series. I think this is a 5-book series. They're all kind of short as well, which I quite like. I haven't tried these before, if I remember rightly. I read A Trial of Sorcerers and then I bought this, which I think says a lot. I was like, yeah, sold, and I just never read it. So I'd like to get it off my TBR and I would like to read it. I don't really know too much about it. I know that they're all like interlinked and connected. They're all in the same world. It's like, you know what, I just want to read it this year. And that was justified enough. I'm trying to finish as many series as possible this year. So I put on The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I read the first one and I read the novella, and now I'm going to read this one because I really want to get to The Songbird and the Heart of Stone because I've heard that that one is like crazy, like really good, all about the underworld. But this one I'm going to read on Kindle. I'm letting you know, look how thick it is. I'm going to read this on Kindle, and I need to read it kind of soon because I can't really remember what happened in the last book. So I want to get to this as soon as possible. It's just so long, and I really did enjoy the first one, but the problem was I stopped and started it. I don't want to do that again, so I am going to try and read this in a sensible amount of time. Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. This is Sally Rooney's new book. I didn't read it last year when it came out in like September because I had the hardback and this is signed. I just didn't want to get it ruined, so I do have the paperback, which you can get from like airports and stuff. I don't know what it's about. I think it's about chess, you know, intermezzo, chess, but I don't actually know what it's about, and I'm kind of happy to be in ignorance for this. All of the other Sally Rooney books, I've always known something about them going into them, and having that blindsidedness to this book makes me very happy because then I feel like I can really judge it based on what I read and not outward opinion. Another classic I want to read is Villette by Charlotte Bronte. Because I didn't get to this last year, I really would like to get to this year. However, I think I'm going to have a very similar Shirley experience because this doesn't look that long, but it just is. It just is long. And the language obviously is much more archaic than it is now, and it's 600 pages of just but it's fine because I want to be that person who's like, yeah, I've read all of the Bronte books and I can't right now because I haven't. But people say this is her like best work, and I'll be the judge of that. James. So we published this book at work and it was up for the Booker Prize, and as soon as I heard that I was like, oh, this must be good, I better read it. This is James by Percival Everett. I've never actually read Huckleberry Finn. I read part of it and then I decided I didn't like it. I think I was too young to read it, but I've heard great things about this, and apparently the way that it's written is just so, it's quite different than what you would imagine, and it really plays on like the childlike aspect that Huckleberry Finn offers. So I think it's going to be one that really sticks with me after I finish it, but I can't wait to get to this. And because it's on the shorter side as well, sometimes I feel like the shortest stories are the ones that have the most impact on you. Another one I want to read that I'm like, wow, I can't believe I'm being this girl. Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. The Mistborn trilogy, the Final Empire trilogy, I don't know what it's called. And I'm just so sick of not knowing what people are on about when they're on about Mistborn. And the magic system, again, really intrigues me. It's all about like different metals. I just think it's time, and so it's on there. I'm ready. I do need to buy it. I'm trying to be on a book buying ban for maybe like a month, but maybe then I'll read it. Maybe after that, maybe I'll buy it. Who knows what's gonna happen, but Mistborn is on there. Finally, before my book buying ban, don't look at the cover, I bought Riders by Jilly Cooper because I absolutely love Rivals. I also have Rivals as well. However, I was like, this is like, she's quite a thick book and the pages are, they're thin. They're like Bible thin pages. So I was like, wow, that book's really long. 900 pages long. Ugly cover and 900 pages. Like, I understand what they're doing with the cover. I just don't like it. I will read it because again, it's on my 25 of 2025, but you're joking. And those are all the books that I want to read this year. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know any books that you're all interested in this year and maybe we can have a little discussion about them. And I will see you all in my next video.